evening, cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our breakdown, discussion, reaction, review, deep dive into The Mandalorian. This is episode 3, called The Convert. I have notes. Okay. Before we go anywhere, A, spoilers. B, there has been a discussion today about this episode just being another example of why Andor was so good and that we need to have more Andor in the world, which I happen to agree with, but not at the sake of some of the fun pulpiness that we get in Star Wars, which has been what The Mandalorian has been. The Adventure of the Week Star Wars edition.
Yeah, I mean, they're two different things.
But they're telling the same story. They're telling the same...
They're in the same universe.
Yeah.
But they're not... One's a spy drama, and one's Buck Rogers and his kid in space.
Yeah, Lone Wolf and Cub in space with okay. Some people are not going to like this episode, and I am willing to have that conversation with people. And this is the joke that everybody made about Boba Fett is that the Boba Fett show had 3 episodes without Boba Fett, or 2 episodes without Boba Fett.
Right.
And this one was a bottle episode, bookend with Bo and Din. We'll get into that whole process. But this was about I just freaking Pershing.
Dr. Pershing, yeah.
Dr. Pershing and Kane. Communications officer Kane, who was Gideon's right-hand person on Gideon's ship.
Right. As soon as she showed up, I was, don't trust her. Don't trust her. Don't trust her. I mean, I feel bad for Pershing, I guess, but
okay. So there's some real world parallels between Project Paperclip and bringing the German scientists into the American fold.
Yeah.
After the Nazis fell, and that's how we got the Apollo space program and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not a one-to-one direct thing, but it's much more of what the North did when the South conceded the Civil War, and they fought and fought and fought in Congress that the South should pay for the war, and the South, like everybody who was ever affiliated with anybody in the South shouldn't get rights and shouldn't have all this stuff. And this is much more of that reintegration of those people into society.
Right. Because what do you do with them?
Right.
And what do you do with all the stuff? And what do you do with the people?
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to execute them? You know, that's not the way, the New Republic.
I see what you did there.
That is not the way. Yeah, I mean,
you ever watched a movie and thought, like, this is just visually amazing, and I just love the way it looks, and the colors are amazing? Well, our friends over at Movie Palette have come up with these great pieces of art that you could put up on your wall to show your love of movies without really necessarily being overly dramatic about it. Think of a movie barcode kind of thing, where you can look at the colors and know what the movie is, but it's very, very subtle. If you know us, we are into Tron Legacy. The music and the lights and the color itself is just amazing. Just to give you an idea of what they have. Go to moviepalette.com. Find your own personal favorite movie, your movie color palette, and have it hang on your wall. At checkout, put in Pop Culture 15 to get 15% off. Thank you, Movie Palette, for sponsoring this video. Link is in the description down below. And don't forget, use Pop Culture 15 at checkout to get 15% off your order.
I liked the episode. I mean, I liked the story that they're telling. I get that it did feel a little disjointed, I guess, because you're with Din and Bo, and they're doing the fly and all of that through the canyon, through Beggar's Canyon, and I kept thinking just strafe the cliff and they'll run into it,
Right.
right? Like Independence Day. Um, and then all of a sudden we're on Coruscant,
Yeah.
and beautiful, amazing.
They put some money in this season.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
yeah, amazing. But um, that part did feel a little more like Andor, just because were we on Coruscant? Was that, or were
With
they?
with what's his name? Yes, we were on Coruscant
Okay,
when he went
I
back to his
wasn't sure if
mom.
it was
Yeah.
the same planet
Yeah.
or not. Um,
ISB was on, all the ISB stuff was on Coruscant.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff with Andor was never on Coruscant.
yeah, yeah, because
Luthen and
the
Mon Mothma stuff was all
and the
Coruscant.
and the guy who was actually in those same
Yeah.
apartments or whatever
yeah.
that they turned into
Kill Krill. It's right there. I'll get it.
yeah, that they turned
Kern.
There we go. That they turned into the reintegration camp or whatever. But yeah, so I mean, but it was just a little, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. This is a story we need to tell. Um I guess, we're getting there. But I saw that you got this shirt out, and I was like, oh, is Palpy in this episode? Because I knew he'd already watched it. But yeah, it was just, and maybe they were trying to address some of the criticisms from Boba Fett, and didn't want to do just an entire episode of them on Coruscant. But yeah, it felt a little weird.
I think I think this is one of those episodes where if you had it to binge, it would make sense. Because I feel like we have to finish Pershing's part of the story.
Yeah.
To continue on with the cloning process that is what Grogu, they're trying to go after Grogu.
Right.
For Uncle Palpy. So they had to finish his story somewhere in the spot. And if this is a 10 or 12 episode binge watch, this makes sense because you're 3 episodes from now when they're like, okay, we've got Grogu, we can actually start the cloning process. Because the biggest thing about his presentation in the Opera House, which is the Opera House from Revenge of the Sith, where Palpatine tells Anakin, I can help you save.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you had said that, and I was like, "What Opera House?" Yeah, I mean, they weren't really in it very long. But
that is the place where it all happened.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the most important scenes of all of Star Wars, but specifically the prequels, happens in that building. And now Pershing's there, and he has this really important, like my reintegration has been very important to me because I wanted to do good, and the Empire, the Nazis, used my knowledge, my science, my what I'm trying to do for wrong.
Right.
And I want, this is what I was doing.
Yeah, I would say that it also was a little weird that he is in this auditorium with tens of thousands of people, and obviously the upper echelon, right? They're all dressed all fancy, and are completely out of touch. Like the one guy saying that he almost joined the military and couldn't even get which side he was gonna be on, right?
Yeah.
And then, but that's, you're thinking, oh, okay, cool. They brought him in. They, are using his mind.
Werner von Braun him.
Yeah. And no,
back.
He's sitting at a desk inventorying old, Death Stars, the ships and whatever, the Imperial ships.
Yeah.
So that was I was just like, I don't understand why they had him doing this presentation. They don't even want to hear what he has to say.
I want to get into how badly the New Republic handled everything.
Yeah.
But that is That is a full-on 45-minute conversation just by itself.
Yeah.
I actually
And
was
hindsight's 2020, right?
hindsight is 2020, and the North did it to the South.
Yeah.
The British did it to the British, and the French did it to the Germans in World War One, which is
Yeah.
why we got World War Two.
The Americans did it to the
Japanese,
Japanese.
like it is a reoccurring theme in history that the winners of the war, the winners of the fight, want to punish those that they were already fighting, even though they've already lost.
Right.
And
Or they just don't. It just is. I mean, maybe on the ground level, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that do, but just from a logistics, it seems like the right decision at the time.
Yep.
And then you look back and you're like, wow, this was a really bad decision. You could say the same thing with the Americans arming like the Middle East to
Yeah.
get Russia out. And then, oops, now they all have weapons that we
Weapons
didn't
and
really want
technology,
them
yeah.
to have, but we gave to them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just a reoccurring people not is there a good way to handle that?
Yeah, and that was my next kind of comment was, as much as I don't like the way the New Republic is doing everything, their heart, just like Pershing's heart, is in the right place.
Yeah.
They want to help these people who were indoctrinated into this evil way of looking at the world or the
Right.
galaxy,
Right.
and that they want to try to save as many people as they can. And sometimes those steps go too far with the Mind Flayer, where they made the joke that they were going to hook Cara Dune back up to a Mind Flayer that she never wanted to deal with, and and Pershing's knows too much for what Gideon is trying to do or was trying to do. That of course this was all a setup to get him caught, to put
Right.
him in the Mind Flayer, to
Right.
wipe his mind,
And
whatever.
and it's like it's naive to think that that wouldn't happen, that you're reintegrating these people. Maybe 90% of them do want to just move on. They're like Pershing,
Mhm.
but there's still that 10% who are really still working
King.
for, who
Yeah.
are really still working for, what's left of the empire, other bad actors out there, and are gonna use, and it's I won't say mayhem, but there's just there's all this stuff just
Mhm.
laying around that they
Mhm.
can't take care of, and then it goes back to you've got all these people, and we saw this in Andor, who live on Coruscant, who are rich and
And
just don't
yep, impervious to
completely.
what's going on in the
Yeah,
rest of the galaxy.
yeah,
They even made a joke about living in the outer rim, and
yeah,
that his accommodations in his sterile room, that is a makeshift halfway house,
yeah, yeah.
on Coruscant, is
Reinterment
infinitely better
camp.
than living on the outer rim with the agent, with the client, and
Yeah.
everything that was going on there. Um, Kane from jump, I don't trust her,
No.
and masterclass of manipulation to get him to tell him you were doing good work and you need
Yeah.
to continue that work, and have him come to his own conclusion that we need, if I had just my stuff, I could keep doing this stuff so I could clone new organs to help save people, which is all he was trying to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And he is a naive, brilliant person who just wants to do the right thing, but he can't. And he has somebody like Kane who's just there to push all the right buttons,
Yeah.
to do whatever. Now, a couple of things, getting Pershing off the board, I think is absolutely what the whole plan was.
Yeah.
She
They just
is
wanted him to get the stuff together so that they could use what he had already done previously.
already done previously.
Yeah.
The Star Destroyer that they were on was not necessarily a particular Star Destroyer, but the equipment that he grabbed, they can. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's doing cloning stuff that they have now commandeered.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I mean, he was doing it, so he's got
I'm sure there's records of it
notes
somewhere.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then she picks something up off the table in the laboratory, looks at it a little bit, and then you never see her put it down. And her hands cupped when they I'm pretty sure she took something
Yep.
from that laboratory. I don't know what it is, but it was a small vial or something or whatever.
Yep.
But her, she's obviously an agent for someone. We're all assuming Gideon because she was working for Gideon last season. But
But
uh,
he's been captured.
he's been captured, and that was the other thing I was going to say is that when all of them were sitting down having a drink together, and those little sippy cup things you get from Total Wine, the little
Little booze balls.
booze balls, that's what they're
Yep.
called. And they're all, by the way, they don't have their old names yet.
Yeah, they're numbers.
They're numbered like they were stormtroopers or whatever, which is, again, I could have a 45-minute conversation about how bad the New Republic is handling everything.
Yeah, such a bad idea.
But they said in there that he escaped. No, that's just a cover. He's still hooked up to a mind flare. So he is like Newt Gunry, from the prequels, always weaseling his way out of being in trouble. Like, or he's escaped again, or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, if he has. I mean, he could just be a urban legend at this point, right?
Yeah.
And he's just, his reputation has outgrown. I mean, he could just be sitting at a cell someplace.
Giancarlo Esposito was at the premiere event, and he loves this character.
Yeah.
And he loves playing this evil bad guy. Just look at what he did in Breaking
Bad.
and Better Call Saul. But it was very interesting that they just kind of slid it in as part of a conversation. Like, oh no, he's probably escaped, or there's at least enough questioning out there in the world that he's escaped or is off the board right now, which means he's probably in hiding somewhere. And Kane is the one running around doing all of his stuff.
Yeah,
she had herself reintegrated like Zola for Hydra in the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of general idea that she's worked her way in, and so it's everybody trusts her and stuff like that when she's secretly doing stuff with the other hand. The DNA. Last thing I want to talk about this, and then we'll talk about the actual Mandalorians in this show. The other thing that he made a point in his presentation of saying is he took. Once I learned that you could take DNA from 2 different samples and make the best parts of them to make the organs stronger, was exposition, not the Wikipedia entry on his tablet of what Coruscant is, which is a whole show that I want to see. Give me the tour of the Travel Channel version of Coruscant.
Yeah,
but
that'd be fun.
Him doing that was for us, the audience, really specifically.
Right. So now you're like, who is the other one? Right. We know Grogu is one.
Right.
Who is the other, or what species, or whatever is the other one?
And where we sit in the timeline right now, we're about 8 years after the Endor.
Right.
Now the Battle of Jakku happens 2 years after that. The Battle of Jakku, like that's Operation Cinder. That's Palpatine's final order of eliminating all of the access way to the Empire, and Sloane and a handful of people are given coordinates, and they go to the unknown reaches that ends up being Exegol. And so that's all the Aftermath series, and they've already used details from that series for this show, Cobb Vanth. And so it was said once in one interview a month before the first episode of The Mandalorian that this is going to go into the concepts of how the First Order is in the universe, in the galaxy, and how we get there. And so, and then that person was never allowed on TV ever again. And I'm pretty sure the Marvel snipers got to him. But if we go on that, and we're talking about cloning, and they made a point of talking about midichlorian counts or whatever, how strong Grogu is with everything, and it's very interesting that they are definitely laying out the groundwork for the idea of the clone that keeps getting rejected to get to Palpatine in the sequel trilogy. That's what I want to say. And so that I find I love that because Star Wars is very tip of the iceberg storytelling. We're going to give you a hint here and then come back later and tell you some more of it. And then we'll come back later in some other form and tell you there. And so Palpatine coming back with the Rise of Skywalker, I always felt that that was going to happen. Of course he is. He's the ultimate evil in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So him showing up, I was like, yep, that's totally. And Ian McDermott's playing it. Yep, oh, totally, totally. And he's on the grabby claw thing. Yep, totally, totally. So I was in for all of that. But now we're going back and telling how we got to that point.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, because there was a lot of wait, what? When that happened.
And people are going to say this is retconning. This is not retconning. This is filling in details through the process. That is Star Wars.
Yeah.
The first episode, the first ever thing of Star Wars, called Star Wars, later A New Hope, is the middle section of a 9-episode TV series, which really big, but it's in the middle, and so Lucas was always going back and adding a detail here further down the line that changes the way you view it.
Right. If you don't like it, go yell at George Lucas.
Yeah. This is how he set it up. Yep.
This is how his brain works.
Let's talk about the actual Mandalorians and the Mandalorian show. Okay, so it's a bookend of this episode. We start the episode with
where we left
in the mines of Mandalore.
Yep.
And Bo is staring into the water.
Yeah.
Like, did I just see what I actually saw with Mythosaur? Did I actually see that? I can't bring myself to say I saw that. Is really what the expression on her helmet is. I just can't. I just not registered that that's actually what I saw. So when Dan wakes up, whatever, I love Grogu like petting his helmet.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like,
Dad?
why
You're
isn't she, like giving him mouth to mouth? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can't take that off.
We'll get into that part in a minute. Him's instantly saying, "I've been redeemed. I need to go."
Yeah.
And Bo asks him, like, "What did you see?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "I saw the cliff face when I was falling, and then nothing else." And did you see anything alive? She asked him, and he said, "Like what?" And she drops it.
Yeah.
So the question last week was, did he see anything? As we sit right now, no, he doesn't remember seeing anything. But when she asked him, he just woke up from almost drowning.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility that somewhere in his brain, somewhere down the line, something's going to get kicked, and it happens to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, yeah, I remember something, whatever.
Maybe.
And they go.
He gets some water.
To prove he's there. And they get on Bo-Katan's ship. I love that he started calling her Bo. Instead of just Bo-Katan Kreese, like he did. They're on a first name basis now.
Yeah, they're on a nickname basis.
Yeah, it's even better. And then the TIE defenders show up. And there's a really cool action dogfight sequence that goes on. And then jumping out and getting the N1 and her calling it not bad for an antique and everything.
Yeah. It's been modified.
It's Dad's hot rod. R5 like floating. And falling over and like stuff. And I love like when everything happens, Grogu's like, nope, I'm gonna take a nap, and the pram comes up and everything is done. He's like, oh, hey, how are you doing down there?
Where are you going?
Out of that though, they bomb Bo's house.
Yep.
Her castle. Her family castle. It's been in generations and generations and generations. And she has nowhere to go now.
She has no one.
She has no one. She has nothing. She has her ship and this guy and his kid and this weird droid that's like falling apart. And
they have become a ragtag family.
They are.
There's mom. There's dad. There's a Grogu, and there's a.
They're in the station wagon. They're going to Wally
Yep.
World. Like they're just. We need IG-88 or IG-11 like strapped to the top of it with on a tied down. It's just like totally what it has. Uh, she tries to go after the bomber. She gets one of them, and then 875,000 TIE defenders show up. And
From where?
from where? And I love that they addressed it. Like, you have been stealing uh, em, uh, Empire warlords, or yeah, Empire warlords
Stealing from
from
Empire.
Empire.
Yeah.
And she's like, and they probably have a problem with that. She's like, why didn't you tell me? Like, it's a
Yeah.
nice
Now
little
you
joke.
tell me.
But then all of them show up, and those are big boy ships. Those aren't regular TIE fighters.
Yeah.
Those are well defended, well armored,
Yeah.
well stocked.
But as we learned in A New Hope, those don't have long range capabilities.
That's a TIE fighter.
The defenders do.
The defenders do.
Okay.
So and Bo makes a point of saying that's a lot for a warlord. And
Yeah.
all of us who understand where the Ahsoka series is going,
Right.
a Grand Admiral
Right.
would have an opportunity at that. Now, I find it very interesting that they do that introduction in the first 5-10 minutes of this episode before the opening credit thing. And the next episode is directed by Dave Filoni.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
something in there makes me feel like we're going to get either Sabine, Ahsoka, or Thrawn. Or a Thrawn reference. Like, it's just going to be his silhouette. Introducing him here in this show, I think is a dirty trick that I'm here for. Don't get me wrong. I'm here for it. But I think it's a dirty trick because everybody's like, who's going to play Thrawn? And so, the biggest two conversations that we're having right now until we get to Celebration in 3 weeks, and that's what's going to be the next movie, and who Yahya Abdul Mateen the third is going to be playing. But the conversation who's going to play Ezra and who's going to play Thrawn has been the conversation since they introduced the Darksaber. And
Right.
so I just found that whole sequence fun, amazing, awesome. I don't believe they did that to Bo again. Like, Bo is a Thor at this point in time. She's got exactly what Thor's got, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So in the back end of the episode, when they go to the covert, and the armorer's like, "Yeah, you went to the mines of Mandalore. Good job, Mando.
Which I'm shocked. I thought she was gonna like pour the water in there and be like, "Nope, it's not it.
It's a lie." And then Paz Vizsla sitting there ready to beat him up as it is.
Yep. But she told the truth.
She told the truth, and then she tells Bo that you did the same thing that he just did. You bathed in the waters. You taken your helmet off as you were in it.
Yeah.
Which I kind of got like later on, like when they got like when Den says it would be better if you just leave your helmet on.
Yeah.
So I'm like, she hasn't taken her helmet off since she got out of the water. And I would think like it would be the first thing that she would do when she got out of the water, but she didn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some stuff has been going on.
Some stuff has been going on.
She hasn't had a chance.
But they invite her to be part of the group, say you can leave whenever you want to leave, and you're one of us now. And then everybody kind of coming and clapping their backs and everything.
Yeah.
Is such a cult leader thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you have nothing left. Oh, we're here for you, sweetheart. I know it's been a really hard thing.
But she doesn't know that she doesn't have anything left.
Does she?
Well, that's true. If she had something to do with her being, or at least has some knowledge.
I think she has outside knowledge of the outside world.
Yeah.
Because so many new Mandalorians are there, and FYI, there's been no town shown on this planet.
Right. So how did everybody get there?
So how did everybody get there? And this episode, it was all adult bodies compared to the first episode, which was about a 50-50 mix between childlike size bodies and adult size bodies, which has been something I've been paying attention to. And so I'm wondering if they're building an army for something to go, going forward. And we still have the trailer shot of the Mandalorians attacking Navarro.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what that might be the one misdirect in that trailer. So I'm wondering what that is, and I find it interesting. But it's such a cult leader thing to do, to embrace her and say, "Oh, you can leave whenever you want, and you're part of us now,
Yeah.
and you've done all the right things, and you've got this new friend here that you obviously care for, and he wants to be here, and you should be here." And like I we all thought that there would be a big conflict between the two of them, and I think there still will be. But we're as we sit right now, they she didn't do that,
Right.
and I thought that was interesting. Um, so where we go next, I love that they don't give us next week on
Yeah.
on the men. Meanwhile, on the Mandalorian show, a couple things that I wanted. We talked about the Tide Defenders. I have notes. I told you.
I would like to point out that Pershing's hair being gray gives you, if you didn't pay attention to,
Interceptor. Sorry, I called it Defender.
oh,
Interceptor.
um, was it Favreau or Filoni who said like the timeline of how long it had been since
Yes.
between. So
Yes.
his his beard is gray. He's got some streaks going in his hair
Yeah.
to help you kind of understand that a decent amount of time
Ha-
has gone
has
by.
gone by. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I say it's about 8, 9 years
Yeah,
after everything had happened
yeah,
with Indoor and stuff.
yeah,
Um. They said Happy Bendu Day.
yeah.
On Coruscant. Now, Bendu for Rebels fans is the neutral force character on Lothal that um, Ezra and Freddie Prinze Jr. Kanan. Sorry. Why is Freddie's name the only thing I can
The
think of?
guy who can't see.
Yeah, Kanan and Ezra commune with Kanan first, and he's the middle of the force. He's not absolute good. He's not absolute
Okay,
Sith kind of thing.
okay,
And he's a big, huge mountain of a walrus.
sure,
About the only way I can explain it. But he's voiced by
sure.
Tom Baker, the fifth, the seventh Doctor. God,
Fourth.
fourth Doctor. There's two Bakers, and I always get lost in which one is which. But I, it was like we got Purgles, and now you say Happy Bendu Day. Like I have questions. I have questions. And the only other thing I want to talk about is the mountain point. Like Pershing and Kane go on this date, and the fair is kind of going on, and they make a point of like how it just feels different. That there's much more inclusion kind of feel, and all the different species are walking around. The rock that they show is the highest point on Coruscant, and during the High Republic, Chancellor So, to prove her ability to rule, has to climb to the top of the mountain.
It's like
Now,
5 feet off the ground.
now,
Yeah,
but the High Republic is at this point in time 350 years before, and so it's not high. It's not like doing Everest or K2 or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's more like Shasta, Mount Shasta in Washington.
All right.
You can
all right.
get to the top of it. There's no volcano on top
Yeah,
of it, but it's a thing you do, and they make a point of talking about in the High Republic that it's the symbol of there will always be something natural on this planet,
right.
and then they show it, and the only thing that's left natural is like this little peak, and with no trees or anything on
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Which is the tree is a different conversation. We can have the forest tree conversation at a different time too. But that it was it was very interesting. They just kind of threw that in there.
yeah,
It is a major spot in Coruscant. So if we're gonna spend a whole episode in Coruscant and they go on a date, it makes sense that they have that kind of there. But it
yeah.
was just it was like one of those like
It also gives you an understanding because we did go to that uh ring. Um, was that Mandalorian or was that Boba Fett? Where Mando goes to the ring. It's a city, but it's just a giant ring.
yeah, that was in Book of Boba Fett, but it was the Mando episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so it kind of like that's not a planet at all. It's
yeah,
just a ring of buildings, a ring of city where this helps you to understand that Coruscant is, and at one time, I mean, it still is, but it was a planet
Yeah.
like all the rest of them, and they've just built on top and on top and
Yep.
on top and on
Yep.
top and on top, and to the point where this high peak is now
A rock.
barely 5 feet above the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that they have spent time for those who haven't read all the books and done
Right.
all the other stuff. They've gone through in these shows and kind of shown things that help build the universe of Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's a history to this piece of rock in the middle of the city planet. And so having this conversation gives you more knowledge of the importance of what that area is. And then it adds importance to them being there and how they had to talk about when the Empire was there, it didn't feel like this and it
Yeah.
felt different.
Yeah.
And you get having that conversation that they had there makes you see the manipulation that Kane is doing the entire so I just it's this tip of the iceberg storytelling, tip of the mountain storytelling. And so it was one of those things where I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. That adds. That's why I said this episode is. I think this episode is really good because for those of us who go on a little bit deeper level than the average viewer, that is an important part of the overall story of Coruscant. And Coruscant, sorry, and Coruscant is the center of the galaxy. They even made the joke.
Yeah.
A lot of people
It's
say that's
not
the center.
actually really in the center. It's a little bit off.
Oh, a little bit off. It's like so perfect. It's so good.
Yeah.
TIE Interceptor. Please be nice in the comments. I think that's everything I want to talk about. Unless you want to talk about the New Republic for another 45 minutes and how bad Mon Mothma was as a leader. Let us know what you thought of this episode and our breakdown and discussion of it in the comments down below. Like I said, please be nice. That's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links are in the description down below. Hopefully, TikTok. Until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.